Welcome to Making Stuff with Chris Dayhut and our segment titled This Maker's Tools. As you saw in the thumbnail icon when you selected the video, today we're going to talk about the hobby knife. That's right, they're actually called hobby knives. That's all encompassing regardless of the brand name. Now there is an X-ACTO knife, but that's made by specifically the X-ACTO company. So for today's discussion, we're talking generically about the hobby knife. The hobby knife gets its start, so to speak, all the way back in 1917. Sundal Donninger founded a company in 1917. That company is now known as X-ACTO Spring, the company that makes the X-ACTO knife. Donninger invented the hobby knife in the 1930s, so this was quite a while after he started the company. But his original intent for this device was to be used as a surgical scalpel. Well, thank goodness he did it, because there are millions of people all over planet Earth that utilize hobby knives. The hobby knife is just one of those tools where you really don't ask if you need one. It's how many should I buy? That's the reality of it. Everybody that's into hobbies, crafts, making, everything, people use hobby knives. In my world, with all the different things that I mess around with, I don't recall using a hobby knife in any of the plumbing work I've done. I know I've used it when I was working on my race car and so forth back 40 some years ago. Woodworking, just electrical, it's constantly in my use. It's a go-to tool. It gives me great precision and control over cutting things or shaping things or detailing things. So everybody should have several of them. One of the things that makes them so unique is the ability to have different blades to go into a common handle. There are glue applicators, regular, what's called the number 11, the most common blade. There are saw blades. There's this curved blade that looks like a surgical scalpel, which is great for certain shearing cuts. You've got a chisel point or a square-ended one that works cutting mostly in this direction, and back to the number 11. All of these can fit in one or the other handles here. Now you'll see this is my collection, and I know it is not complete. I didn't even go out to the garage area to find any of these tools over in that area. But these are a variety of handles, and several of them are X-ACTO brand. This one's been around for quite a while. It's larger. It had this rubberized grip, and I used it for a very long time, and now the collet, or the clamping unit, doesn't really hold the blade very well anymore, but it has served me incredibly well. This is a larger unit, another X-ACTO handle, but this is the large size. It handles larger blades that have the larger area here. Notice the difference between these two blades here and the portion that you clamp on. This one has been very, very useful for working with the saw blades and other large tools, but frankly, this type of saw is something that I've used many, many times, both in woodworking as well as in model building and so forth. You'll notice, well, this one's just empty, but it's a brand SGS. I don't recall what that really stands for, but I have a number of them from that company. And this one here, the collet is shot as well, but I just don't want to take it away or throw it away. But you can kind of see how that one section of the collet's kind of caved in and it's bent. This is another SGS with the chisel bit in it. This is a generic branded one that just has a number 11 X-ACTO in it. This one is a Hobbytown brand. Must have been when I was in a Hobbytown store. I thought, oh, I better pick one up. Another generic one. You'll notice that regardless of who makes them, they all look the same. This one is another Hobbytown, same as the other one, and it currently has in here the applicator for cyanoacrylate adhesives that we use in model making, plastic model building and wood model building, etc. These types of tips really changed the model making industry, in my opinion. Here's one from Excel. This is a very unique one, and I don't even know if I've ever used it. And what it is, this tip, you'll notice I'm spinning the handle, but the tip isn't rotating, the blade. This allows you to freehand cut materials, often like vinyl material that's got an adhesive backing where you do lettering and so forth. And I'm not really skilled at freehand drawing, so I don't think this ever really helped me much with what I was trying to accomplish. But nonetheless, it is a very, very good tool, all working on that same principle as a hobby knife. Here's another hobby knife. This is very similar to this one. The holder, that one being X-ACTO, this one being Gordon brand. The one thing you'll notice on these, that's a very handy feature. Notice this nib here and here. It won't roll off your bench. And that's a wonderful feature. If you've ever been on a bench that isn't level and had tools roll away from you constantly, you'll love that. This particular holder is still working pretty good. It's seen better days, but I still have it in my functional use drawer, so it's still getting used quite a bit. I do buy blades in bulk, often off of Amazon, but I am very much a firm believer with these tools that you use them, and once they start showing that they're dull, just throw the blade away and move on to another one. They don't behave as nice as you would like as they dull. And in fact, in some applications, you will see people use a blade to make one cut in certain materials, throw the blade away, and then go on to a new blade. Just depends on what you're cutting and how sharp the blade has to be. But buying in bulk, I've had pretty good luck with it. I don't go for the most inexpensive available, but I certainly do shop around. As mentioned earlier, these are the saw blades. They work really, really good in both wood model building as well as plastic model building. This one are the scalpel style. I don't really use these very much. Very rare do I ever use them, but I like having them on hand in those applications where that type of cutting edge, that curved edge, works out a lot better than the straight edge. This is one of the cases or ways that X-ACTO sells their blades. I forget how many come in here, but it's a nice dispenser. And the really nice thing is you've got a little area here where you can dispose of your dull blades. And that way they don't end up in the trash bag where if you're kind of compressing it down to eliminate wasted space in your garbage can, you're not going to get stabbed by a blade. This one is my latest acquisition. While researching this story and looking for comparatives on Amazon so you get an idea of price range, I spotted this one. And realistically, the detail that caught my eye right away was this right here. This is very unique to all the other ones. And if you look at them all, they've got an aluminum collet that's usually split 2 or 4 ways, leaving 2 or 4 leaves to the collet. And that's their failure point, and it is also their weakness. After time, this component, the collet, starts to just collapse and it doesn't spring back. At that point, it becomes pretty much useless because you're going to constantly fight it, pushing the blade into it. The other thing that's wrong with this design, now don't get me wrong, this design has been made like this for many, many decades, so it does work. But from a higher end perspective, what's wrong with it is you're using aluminum threaded into an aluminum part with an aluminum knurled sleeve to drive the collet. Aluminum on aluminum is not a good match for moving components. And that is part of the reason why these fail. Now, they're very inexpensive. I'll be showing you a price where you can get, I think, 3 of them, 3 of this type of handle, even anodized in a pretty color, and a whole bunch of blades for a few bucks. So they serve their purpose very well, but they're not the best at holding the blades very securely. And that's what set this one apart. This section is plastic, but it must be a glass-filled material. It's a very hard, tough plastic. I can't quite identify it, but you'll notice that we've got brass here as your tightening knob, along with this rubberized sleeve here. But I loosen it, the collet opens up perfectly. This slides in as if it were a precision fit. If I can see it, it will work a lot better. There we go. And then you just snug it up a little bit, and the blade is very secure, much more secure than what you can do with this style. What is very different about this, I'm going to take it apart again. I'm going to pull the sleeve back along with the knurled tightening device, and you'll see that the collet is 2 pieces. And hopefully I can get this to show up on camera, but notice right here is a spring that separates the 2 halves of the collet. That is very handy. And you will also, well, you probably can't tell on camera, this is a steel collet. And it has 2 halves, and it's very well machined, and it's very polished. So that gives you the ability for these 2 pieces to mate together very nicely and accurately hold your knife. Now I'm going to get this back together, but to just quickly show you again, I got to get my other glasses on so I can see this thing. We've got 1/2 of the collet with a threaded rod on it that screws into this plastic handle, and as I mentioned, this is not just a basic soft ABS plastic. It must be one of the newer, tougher polymers, probably glass filled with how sturdy it is. But we've got the collet half. We need to put the spring on it. You'll notice there's a pin there and then 2 holes there. On the mating half, or the mating part of the collet, you'll see the hole there that lines up with that pin. And as you'll see on the edge there, it's kind of got a bump out. I'm using this as a pointer at this area. And that allows it to rock, open, and close when using it. Then the hard part for me is to get that in there. Then you rotate that, and you'll notice there's a positive drive mechanism here. There is a nib on the collet that lines up with a slot on the knurled knob, and that allows you to very comfortably and very positively drive the tightening process. And it's very, very smooth. Now I've only used this probably once or twice since I got it. So I can't go on and tell you how wonderful it is beyond my observations at this point. But I have very high hopes that this particular modeler's knife is going to be very, very appreciated in my workshop. And most probably it's going to reside down here in my electronics lab for most of the time. And then if I get back into plastic modeling or wood scale modeling, then it'll go up there, or I'll just buy another one because, frankly, I don't think it can have too many hobbyist knives. It is realistically impossible for me to give you a great demonstration of all the capabilities of a hobby knife. So this will just be a few quick cuts and a few quick tips showing you how I use it for just a few of my projects. Let's just go ahead and do some little work on this particular piece. This is a 3D carving off my CNC router. You'll notice that most of the surfaces are very smooth and very well detailed, requiring no secondary treatment. However, if you look closely into these areas here, you'll notice that there's some very rough edges, and those will need to be cleaned up. And you can use a variety of picking motions, scraping motions, and even slicing motions to get that area or those areas down in the fine nooks and crannies cleaned up very nicely. You can also do edge treatments where you've got corners. For example, if I wanted to get rid of this mess up here on that hole, I can take my knife and easily swing around on it and remove that sharp edge along with all those strands of wood fibers, just like that. You can do the same in these areas. If I wanted to break the sharp edge that would exist across there, I could take the knife, holding it perpendicular to the surface that I'm working with, or even tilting it slightly toward me as I'm pulling on it, and that can remove a lot of material and remove fine burrs. You could also do a paring cut, where now the knife is very much in line with the material that I'm cutting. I will dig in, and then I'm pulling the knife along with my thumb doing all the pulling motion. And that way, if it slips, you've got a lot of control to prevent gouging into your hand. The last thing you want to do is have this hand free floating and just pulling really hard in this direction, because you know the knife is going to enter your body at some point and that magical red fluid is going to come out. Generally not what we want. So a paring cut is a great way to cut with this type of tool. As you know, when you take a 3D printed part off the build plate, there's often a sharp edge or a little bit of elephant foot there. And you can program in or design it with a chamfer there, but you still end up usually with a little bit of flashing. You can take your hobby knife, drag it across there in a scraping action, and get rid of those burrs. Works out really good and efficient. You can also take your knife and cut, as I'm doing there, and create a nice smooth edge on the inside circle areas, or any other shape for that matter. Another example is on this 3D printed part, where if I forgot to put a chamfer on this flat area, you'll notice that I've got a hexagon embedded into or sunk into this area. If I wanted to take a scraping cut, again perpendicular to the surface or a little bit leaning forward, you can drag it across, and that'll usually remove a sharp edge. If the material's a little more resistant, you can take a very small paring cut and remove that edge and have a nice smooth surface there. Back to our toucan. I've just flipped the board over now, and oftentimes, like in body work or even painting anything, you may have layouts on your surface where you're painting patterns and so forth, and you need to remove the masking. Now in this case, this is a black vinyl tape. Technically it's not striping tape, it is floor tape for use in gymnasiums, but it works very well for masking and layout for paint schemes. But lay your knife down, very low angle. Now I'll show you that from a side view. You want to be at about this angle, not this way. This way it's very easy for the knife to wander around as you're pulling along and making a cut. If you lay it down flat, like so, and then you also got a good sight along the edge of the blade and your straight edge, if you're using a straight edge, to pull along and get a beautiful cut. It also works as a great tool for getting under the tape so you can peel off the material you don't want. And again, with that, tilting the blade down, even if you're freehanding, you want it down at a relatively low angle to get more control over the knife so that you get much more fluid motions and more of what you wanted to have. I know that was a very brief and simple demonstration of the capabilities of the mighty hobby knife. It is such a useful tool. Again, it would be impossible to show you all possible uses for it. So hopefully that whets your appetite a little bit so that you can go into a project with a little more confidence you picked the right tool. As mentioned, prices run the full gamut with these hobbyist knives. This particular find on Amazon, they're calling it an X-ACTO knife set, which is wrong. I highly suspect these are not X-ACTO brand, so they're misusing the name, but what they mean is a hobby knife set, and it comes with 3 holders, very attractive, anodized aluminum, and it comes with a bunch of number 11 blades, which are the most common ones. All of that with free shipping for $4.99. So that's less than a dollar, well, let's say $1.50 piece plus all your blades. So that's a very good price. But their performance will be similar to that of what I was showing earlier with my all aluminum blades. Now if we go to this one, this one's a rather interesting one. It's they're kind of calling it an art blade, so maybe that's why they can call it or price it at $37. But they do refer to it as a precision hobby knife set with replaceable blades, etc. I do notice that it's brass here and the collet is brass. The handle looks like it's aluminum. But it's a generic brand, so that kind of tells me it's probably of generic quality. But this one's for $37.81. That was kind of the higher end. There were actually some that was hard to figure out the pricing because they were up into the several $100 range, but I think those were wholesale purchases where you might be purchasing a couple of hundred of them. And it wasn't clear, so I didn't want to include that in my price comparative for you. And finally, I will have a link for this next one in the comments below or in the description, is the X-ACTO website. This is the company that created these things, and they're really kind of one of the leaders in this line of tools. But if you go to knives and blades, you will see that they've got the full variety of handles, different shapes, different types of blades, big handles, little handles, the old-fashioned style. They also produce these utility knives, and then we get into the blade sets and the full knife sets with different size handles. This one you'll recognize. I was showing you that one earlier, with a variety of blades and so forth. They have a good variety of them, and just to clarify for everybody, I am not sponsored or in any way, I'm not even providing a link as to where you can buy these, so don't think I'm being biased. There are other good brands out there making hobbyist knives, and one of the brands, and I've never owned one, that I just saw in passing was Fiskars. I believe that's European, and that's probably the most popular brand over in Europe. Fiskars or ERS. Anyhow, Fiskars was in there, and I suspect that they offer a premium quality tool as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video before it turns into a 3-hour demonstration of all the cool things you can do with it. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you could be so kind and you've enjoyed this video or this series of This Maker's Tools, please let me know in the comments below what you think, what you'd like to see, and so forth. If you've liked it, enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. That greatly helps keep the channel going, and it helps motivate me to keep making more videos. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next time.